Hey everybody, welcome back. It's David here doing a spoiler-free discussion of Rogue One, and I'm here with...
David.
How's it going?
Going good.
And so what are your general thoughts on the movie?
I'd have to say I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I did as well. I thought it was awesome.
I mean, as far as movies go, the pacing was right, the action was good, the drama didn't feel forced in any point. So, I mean, it was a thoroughly enjoyable film.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it had like too many slow parts. I felt like maybe there was, they could have maybe cut out a little bit here and there. But the action was amazing to me.
Yeah, and just the whole feel of the movie being, I mean, it is a Star Wars movie, but it's not a Star Wars movie, if you know what I mean. It's
Right.
It's more of a full-on movie, almost more like a war movie, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. Between the Empire and the rebellion and kind of saying, okay, we really need to, commit and do this thing and go against the Empire fully.
Yeah, and I mean, it not only has, how they got the plans, but also, yes, the forming and the difficulties he had building the rebellion. And I mean, it's done well enough that, I mean, I feel like it's a good addition, but it's not something, you have to see to know what the other movies are about. It kind of stands on its own.
Right, exactly. I feel like some people will probably, if they're not familiar with Star Wars, or if they haven't seen the other movies, you definitely would want to see the movies so that you kind of get the gist of what this is about.
I don't think so much, because I think that's the good thing they did is, like, besides, small cameos here and there or not quite big parts, their focus are really on all new characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really felt like it could stand on its own as its own film.
Yeah, I guess that's true. In terms of like the cameos, there are a few cameos that I felt were a little forced in how they did it. A person who's not familiar with Star Wars might say, okay, why is this a big deal, kind of thing. Whereas a fan would be like, oh man, this is awesome.
Yeah, and I agree with you, even though I think one of the ones you're speaking of, which we'll get into a spoiler edition of this more detailed, but yeah, I felt more like a why was that even necessary? But It was so brief that I feel someone that, I mean, you can't tell me no one knows what Star Wars is. You got the general idea. You may have not seen the movies, but you know about Star Wars. I mean, it's such a cultural phenomenon, you can't.
It's an American institution.
But anyways, yeah, they're so brief that even if they're not familiar with the other characters, the ones that they do hang on a little bit longer from the older movies that seem to play a little bit more of a bigger part definitely are explained a little bit better. But yeah, the brief flashes here and there, I mean, it's nice to see that they're hanging on to the original canon, or still saying, yes, we are in the timeline, in dealing with the rest of the movies and their stories, but we also can stand alone with these new original characters. And I mean, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, if you ask me.
Yeah, kind of saying we're in this universe, but we're our own thing, basically. One thing I did like, speaking of being a part of the universe, was expanding on like the whole universe, because they went to like different planets than we've seen before, and also there was one installation in particular that I thought was really cool looking that we haven't really seen in a Star Wars movie before. And I felt like it was, like you said, a breath of fresh air, seeing like new environments and a new kind of take on the whole Star Wars kind of formula, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of seems like they're reworking the whole sci-fi in itself, because I mean, sci-fi wouldn't really exist as it is without what Star Wars did.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But they kind of had to grow with the times. If you look a lot of sci-fi now, probably say since the late 90s, early 2000s, went a little bit darker, went a little bit more real, focusing on character issues and character flaws outside of, oh, we're flying a spaceship, there's an alien, there's a robot. It's a little more in-depth, and this feels like they're kind of going a little bit that direction without casting aside everything that has already been done before it. Yep. And kind of giving you a little bit more. It's really nice to see that they can do a Star Wars movie that doesn't have to be pretty much this grand operatic kind of, deal. This big drama, this big
giant story.
Yeah, with multiple arcs and, the base formula. It was a straight up, these are the soldiers that are trying to build a rebellion. These are the soldiers that are trying to squash a rebellion. It really wasn't in this like grand scheme of things. They're kind of just doing their own thing, trying to survive.
Right, and that's great that it's a small contained story. It's about this small group of people, trying to do this thing that does have major consequences later on, but that's not what the story's about. The story's about these characters who are trying to get the plans to the Death Star, basically. That was great. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that kind of is a sore thing. If you've seen Star Wars, you kind of know, okay, they're gonna get him. But I feel the way they handled it, it added more. How they came about to even knowing the Death Star exists. How they
definitely
how they had to go about discovering the plans and what to do with it and how to get them out. It really made a very will they make it, won't they make it, kind of situation.
Yeah, and all we knew until now is that, okay, they got the plans for the Death Star somehow, and this is really fleshing out that whole story and how they did it, and it did it really well, too.
There's as much as I want to say about that specifically until we get to spoiler territory, but yeah, it was done well. Each character had their own. I mean, some didn't feel wholly developed, but they were done well enough that I enjoyed them, and I could see people buying the action figure of this specific characters. So just the introduction of these new characters just felt like they weren't cookie cutters of characters that have been done before.
Right. They're unique. But yeah, definitely recommend Rogue One, Star Wars story.
If you enjoy Star Wars, you'll enjoy Rogue One. If you enjoy good movies with good action and story and dialogue, you'll enjoy Rogue One. I mean, that's the biggest thing is when I went in, I had to turn off, what I already know and just view it as its own movie. I mean, it's hard to do, Star Wars has been around 30, 40 years now. Uh-huh. It's everywhere. You can't walk down an aisle in a store and see something Star Wars.
It's hard not to have expectations.
And it's just you got to turn off the expectations, go in and take the movie as is. If you want a traditional Star Wars movie, wait for Episode 8 to come out.
Yeah.
Don't go seeing this and get a bad attitude because it's not the same or they didn't do this or that right. Because honestly, it has very little tied in, but then has so much involvement of the other movies.
Yeah, a very, very different vibe to the whole movie, which ties into the smaller story aspects of it. So you would definitely recommend Rogue One as well?
Yeah, I definitely recommend it to anybody that wants to see a good movie.
Yeah, so go see it now. But thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any more thoughts, comment below. And stay tuned for a spoiler-filled review. Thanks for watching and have a good one.